So, hello again, everyone. Thank you for coming. We're very excited to be here with all of you and to speak about a topic that is relevant to everyone. And at the same time, it is not spoken about a lot. So, our topic for today is menopause and the time leading up to it, which is perimenopause. You may know that this month it's Menopause Awareness Month. And we thought it's a good opportunity to bring this topic to your attention and to shed more light on what is actually going on and how can we support ourselves and how can we support each other. So whether you're just starting to experience changes or you're supporting someone who is, or maybe you're simply curious to learn more about the topic, then this is the right event. So my name is Cornelia, and I am leading the science team at CLUE. And my colleague Eve and we will do this event together. And Eve is also part of the science team, and she's a reproductive health specialist and a fertility nurse. And our social media manager, Zoe, she's also joining today, and you may see her putting comments into the chat. And since we have quite some information prepared for you today, we would like to make this a bit interactive, and we will also have some questions for you as we go through this. And if you have any question, if anything comes up during the event, then just feel free to type those into the chat, and we will have time for your questions in the end. Okay, I'll start with a brief introduction to CLUE. CLUE is a period tracking and menstrual health app that empowers women and people with cycles to take charge of their reproductive health. CLUE is women-led, and it's a company based in Berlin in Germany. And in the CLUE app, you can track more than 200 different experiences related to reproductive health. And the app then uses the tracked data to give you predictions and to help you identify your personal patterns or also changes over time. So it's basically a tool that helps you better understand your body and your cycle. And in the app, there is also a whole library of different articles written by medical experts. And those are in the app for you to learn more about periods, to learn more about sex, and also to learn more about perimenopause, but also reproductive health in general. And what can you expect from the event today? So we'll start with giving a bit of context on how little people generally know about perimenopause. We'll then speak about what it is, what the signs are, and when it typically happens. We'll also speak about what the typical changes are that we can expect and how we can manage those. And then in the last part, we'll speak about what a supportive work environment can look like. And we would like to get a better idea of your location. So we would like to know from which country you are joining today. So I would like to invite you to just scan this QR code, and then you can type in the country from which you're joining. Oh, wow, quite a mix. Yeah, some people added in the chat, some people added here. Spain, US, Ireland, Australia even, wow. So we're really, we're a mix of people from different time zones. A lot of people from the UK as well, Denmark, Canada, wow. That's really nice to see. Okay, I'll wait a few more seconds. Tanzania, wow. That's super fascinating. So yeah, no matter from where you're joining, thank you so much for spending this hour on your Friday with us. I would like to start with the knowledge gap. So the topic perimenopause is generally neglected, not only in our culture, but also in research, in education, although it's relevant to everyone, as I said before. And there are 1 billion women worldwide who have already gone through it. And everyone who has a cycle will go through perimenopause at some point. And even people who don't have a cycle themselves, they will know someone who will go through it. And this could be a person in your family, it could be your friend, it could also be a colleague. And perimenopause, unfortunately, it's very much a taboo topic for many different reasons. So there is a lack of open discussion. Menopause and perimenopause are often seen as women's issues and are not openly discussed, which can lead to a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding. Societal stigma and shame are also associated with aging in general, or also with the end of our reproductive years. And many women are not adequately educated about perimenopause. And you can imagine that if you're experiencing some symptoms already and you don't know what this can really lead to confusion and even anxiety. And many women lack adequate support from family, from friends, and healthcare providers. Women may also face challenges in the workplace due to menopause-related symptoms, which can impact their productivity, but also overall career advancement. And there is some research that has shown that up to 10% of women will stop working earlier because of unmanaged symptoms of menopause. And because of all of that, we are still in the dark. And our social media manager, Zoe, who's also joining us today, she interviewed different people in Berlin to show how much do they know about perimenopause. And we have a short video of that I would like to share with you.
Have you ever heard of perimenopause?
No, not at all.
No.
No idea.
Not really. Nada. No. Do you know, if you had to guess, around what age it would start?
No idea. When does normal menstruation?
Does it happen after the before?
No, I have no idea.
Sorry, I'm 25. I don't know.
Do you know how long the symptoms can last up till?
I guess for a couple of years.
Man, maybe like a year.
I don't know. I want to risk it and say 3. No.
It can last over a decade.
Really?
Oh, wow. That's quite a long time.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we ran a survey with more than 26,000 participants of the CLUE community, and we could confirm those knowledge gaps around perimenopause with data. And here are some of the main results. So 90% do not feel well informed about perimenopause, and 70% are not even sure what it is. We also found that 84% of respondents in the age group of 35 to 45, so those are people that are very close to entering that phase of their lives, they had not yet received any information from the healthcare provider about perimenopause. So while there is still a long way to go, there is some movement in the space. So you may have seen other initiatives during Menopause Awareness Month. There is also Perimenopause Awareness Month that CLUE invented back in 2023. And celebrities have publicly shared their personal experiences of perimenopause or menopause. There are also growing social media movements where other women also share what their experience looks like and help pushing back on those taboos. The media discussion has also shifted from being very much silent about the topic to more openly acknowledging that menopause is a life stage that matters and a topic that has societal impact, that has an impact on our work life, and that even has an economic impact. Wearable technology has also come up as supporting tools, and there is really high potential of the biometric data to be used in scientific research. CLUE has also multiple wearable integrations coming up, meaning that you will be able to connect your wearable to the CLUE app and then import your biometric data. And we have also partnered with Aura and researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, on a perimenopause research study with the goal to better understand the symptom patterns during this life stage and how people are transitioning through those phases. And more organizations are recognizing the value of menopause support in the workplace. And we will take a closer look at those initiatives in the last section. So while we think we are on a good path, even with this additional visibility that the topic gets, many women still feel uninformed. And there are still some challenges that remain. For example, translating this visibility into real change. So does this really lead to improvements like better public education or earlier intervention or a change in our culture overall? And before I move on to what perimenopause and menopause actually is, it's important to briefly look at the menstrual cycle. And some of you may have joined our last event in the last month already, and then this will look familiar to you. But I still want to go through this again on a really, really high level. So this is an example menstrual cycle where you can see the days across the bottom. And those colored lines that go up and down, those represent the changing hormone levels across the cycle. And here you can see estrogen and progesterone. And those are two of the main hormones that regulate our menstrual cycle. The period itself only includes the days of menstrual bleeding. So this is what you can see here marked in red. And one entire menstrual cycle goes from the start of the period, day 1, until the day before the next period starts. And this is here in this example cycle, day 28. And ovulation occurs roughly on day 14, but it can also move around. And it divides the cycle into two main phases. So we have the follicular phase, which goes from the first day of the period until ovulation. And then we have the luteal phase, which goes from ovulation until the next period starts. And again, this is just an example. So the whole cycle can be longer or shorter than 28 days, and ovulation can happen before or also after day 14. And most people experience some cycle-related symptoms. And this has been reported to be up to 90% of people with cycles, while it depends a little bit on which study you look at. The number can shift a bit. And then here you can see those icons that you might know from your Clue app on the bottom, which show what commonly reported symptoms are across the menstrual cycle. So for example, some people feel more energetic and more sociable in the days before ovulation when estrogen peaks. You see here the blue line is going up before ovulation. And then others report restless sleep or oily skin in the luteal phase. And this is when progesterone is high. This, what is it, pink, red, pink line. And then PMS is very common when hormones drop at the end of the menstrual cycle before the next period start. Yeah, and I'm not going much more into detail with this, but wanted to show this to underline how much hormones can impact our entire well-being. And specifically, those changes in estrogen and progesterone are driving those experiences. And changes in exactly those two hormones are also playing a major role during perimenopause. So let's zoom out a little bit and take a look at our entire reproductive lifespan. So it all starts with menarche, which is the first period. And cycles tend to be more variable after menarche in those first years. And then cycles stabilize. And then in the following years, throughout those reproductive years, cycles are the most stable. Although everyone's experience can be a bit different, some people have less predictable cycles than others. And then later in life, towards the end of the reproductive years, cycles become more variable again until periods finally stop at some point. And menopause is the point in time when there was no period for 1 full year. And the transition to menopause, this is called perimenopause. And I think when looking at this whole timeline, it's important to categorize menopause or perimenopause not as a medical condition or a disease, but it's really a natural life stage that we will all go through. Okay, and now let's move and zoom in a little bit into just this part on the right, so just this perimenopause part. Perimenopause typically starts in the late 40s, but this also varies from person to person. It can last from just a few months for some people up to 11 years for others, so there is really high variation. And the levels of reproductive hormones, they start fluctuating more than usual. So the hormones will go more up and down than what you have just seen in the diagram of the typical menstrual cycle. And then these hormones will decline gradually over time because our ovaries produce less and less of those hormones. And these hormonal shifts, they basically disrupt our entire rhythm of ovulation and menstruation. Ovulation will happen less often, and bleeding patterns also change. And in addition to that, most people experience perimenopausal symptoms, and those include physical symptoms, but also emotional symptoms. And when we look now at this diagram here on the slide, you can see that perimenopause can be divided into early and late perimenopause. And the early perimenopause phase can last between 1 and 8 years. So again, there's really high variability for how long this phase is taking for a person. And at first, you may notice that your menstrual period arrives slightly earlier or slightly later in each cycle than what you would expect. And then in early perimenopause, the typical cycle length varies by around 7 days or more, which means that, let's say you have a cycle that is 28 days long, and then your next one might be 35 days long. And this increases over time. And bleeding may also be lighter or heavier than before. And it's also very common to have longer or shorter periods, meaning that the number of days on which you bleed can be less or more than what you're used to. And this is usually also the start of further physical and emotional symptoms. But there are also reports from people having those symptoms already in the years before. And late perimenopause is usually the phase between 1 and 3 years before menopause, meaning that when you are in late perimenopause, menopause is likely 1 to 3 years away. So you have an idea of how much longer it will last. And during late perimenopause, cycles become even more variable, and then they become longer and longer and more sporadic. And as ovulation becomes less and less frequent, your period might even go away completely for a few months. And typically your cycles vary by around, or cycles can even be around 60 days long. So that's approximately how to tell that you're in late perimenopause. And the symptoms that were already experienced in early perimenopause could become more severe and more frequent here. And eventually menopause is reached and menstrual cycles come to an end, along with the period and the ability to become pregnant. So if you want to prevent a pregnancy, it's important to use reliable contraception until menopause. And the average age of menopause is 51. The time after menopause is when you settle into postmenopausal life. And the natural levels of the hormones estrogen and progesterone, they drop significantly and then they stay really low. And most symptoms become milder or disappear completely, while some people may have symptoms that become more prominent during this time. So for example, vaginal dryness. And I have a question for you now. I would like to know, what do you think? Which factors can influence when perimenopause starts? So again, I'm inviting you to scan the QR code and then select an answer. Okay, some people say genetic factors, but most people say all three. Interesting, it says above, but now it moved on top. But I think it's still clear. Okay, I'm waiting a few more seconds. Okay, so most people say all three. So if you would like to get an idea when you will reach perimenopause or menopause and what you can expect, it's a good idea to ask your mom. While predicting the exact age of when you will reach perimenopause or menopause is not possible yet, there are studies that have shown that half of all women experience menopause around the same time as their mothers. And researchers believe that those similarities are caused by genetics, but also similarities in the environment. And probably it's a combination of both. And the symptoms you experience may also be similar to what your mom experienced, but also other relatives. And research has shown, for example, that hot flashes are associated with really particular genes. And early or premature menopause, which means your period would stop completely before the age of 45 or even 40, can also run in families, which indicates a genetic link here. So this means that if your mother or your sister or your aunt or another relative experience early menopause, then your likelihood of also experiencing it is higher. And then now we come back to the question that I had. There are other factors that can also have an impact. Smoking, for example, is associated with an earlier onset and a shorter duration of perimenopause. High levels of daily stress are also linked to reaching menopause earlier. And then a higher body mass index is associated with a later onset of perimenopause, but it does not affect the duration. So the correct answer was all three. Most of you got it right. And with this, I'm handing over to Eve to speak about the common changes and symptoms.
Thank you, Cornelia, and hello, everyone. So during perimenopause, most people go through changes not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally. You can go to the next slide. And everyone's experience is unique. Symptoms and their intensity can vary widely from person to person. And what makes perimenopause challenging is that these changes can often feel unpredictable or even overwhelming. And the fluctuating hormones, like Cornelia was describing, can affect nearly every part of the body. So some of the most common experiences beyond changes in bleeding pattern include hot flashes and night sweats. So as estrogen levels drop, the body's thermostat becomes more sensitive, and this can lead to sudden waves of heating and sweating. Sleep problems are also common, and that's because lower progesterone can make it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. And this can have a knock-on effect on mood, energy, and concentration. Brain fog and forgetfulness are also common. Dips in estrogen can affect memory and focus, leaving people feeling less sharp or less confident. There are also physical changes, such as weight gain, joint aches, dry skin, vaginal dryness, and even changes in libido are common. And mood swings are common, and there's a higher risk as well of anxiety and depression. And that's because fluctuating hormones impact brain chemistry, affecting things like emotional resilience and stress response. So there are treatments available that can help with these symptoms, and we're going to get into that shortly. Many of these symptoms improve after menopause. However, the hormonal changes that drive these symptoms can also have longer-term effects on the body. So here are some long-term health considerations. So estrogen helps keep bones strong. So when estrogen levels fall, the body starts to break down bone faster than it can rebuild it. And this is why in the first few years after menopause are when bone loss happens most quickly. So if too much bone is lost, it can lead to conditions like osteoporosis and also a higher risk of fractures, especially in the hips, the spine, and the wrists. Estrogen also helps protect the heart and supports how the body uses fat for sugar, how the body uses fat and sugar for energy. With less estrogen, cholesterol levels may rise, weight can shift towards the abdomen, and blood sugar may become harder to manage. So all of these factors combined can increase the risk of heart disease and diabetes. Cognitive health also changes with age and hormonal shifts. So estrogen interacts with brain regions involved in memory, mood, and attention. So after menopause, these networks can become more sensitive to things like stress, poor sleep, and inactivity. So the years after menopause are a good time to build habits that protect your bones, your heart, your metabolism, and your brain through things like movement, good nutrition, and other healthy routines that we'll cover next. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how you can manage perimenopause and menopause symptoms and support your health throughout this transition and beyond. So there are a number of simple tips that you can work into your routine that can help. And these include regular exercise, making sure that you're regularly moving your body. Particularly strength training and weight-bearing exercises have been shown to help maintain bone health and lead to improved balance. Stress management techniques are exercises that can help you relax, like yoga or meditation, and these can be helpful. They can also be helpful in tackling any mood changes. Eating a balanced diet, especially foods that are high in calcium and vitamin D, can help support bone health and bone density. And also smoking has been linked to increased hot flashes and night sweats. So stopping smoking may be a good way to help ease some perimenopause symptoms. And also limiting your intake of alcohol and caffeine can help reduce the severity of hot flashes. So menopausal hormone therapy, MHT, also known as hormone replacement therapy, HRT, is the most effective treatment for moderate to severe symptoms. And there are essentially two types of MHT. So there's estrogen-only therapy, which is typically for someone who has had a hysterectomy or has had their uterus removed, and then combined estrogen plus progestin therapy for someone who still has a uterus. MHT comes in a lot of different forms, including pills, patches, gels, creams, etc., and it has a lot of benefits. It can help reduce hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, sleep disturbances. It can even help with mood changes. And it also helps protect bone density by replacing those declining estrogen levels. And this can help lower the risk of osteoporosis and fractures. And for people who begin MHT in their 50s or within 10 years of menopause onset, there is evidence that it can reduce coronary heart disease and improve life expectancy. On the flip side, MHT is not without risks. These include a small increased chance of breast cancer, stroke, blood clots, and gallbladder disease. But the level of risk depends a lot on age, the time since menopause started, the form of hormone used. For example, there are different risks associated with taking a pill versus a patch or a gel. And of course, individual health history. So that's why when it comes to hormone therapy, individualization is key. The decision to use MHT, what type, what dose, what route, how long, must be tailored to the person's symptoms, their age, their health history, and their personal preferences. Typically, the window of benefit, which means when the benefits tend to outweigh the risks, is usually when MHT is started early in the menopausal transition. So within 10 years of menopause or before age 60. So while MHT is one of the most effective treatments for symptoms and has a lot of health benefits, it's not a one-size-fits-all. So it really requires a conversation with your healthcare provider to weigh those benefits and risks, choose the right form and dose, and to monitor over time. So not everybody can take hormone therapy. And for people who can't or choose not to use hormone therapy, there are several effective alternatives. There are antidepressants like SSRIs and SNRIs that can reduce hot flashes and improve mood. There are also medications like gabapentin or clonidine that can also help with hot flashes and improve sleep. There are also medications called selective estrogen receptor modulators, and these are not hormones, but they act similarly to estrogen and have some of the same benefits, but without some of the risks. There are also local therapies, including vaginal moisturizers and lubricants that can help with dryness. And there are also complementary approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness, and these can be used alongside some of the other treatments that I mentioned to help make them more effective. And then there are herbal, plant-based, or natural hormone products, such as phytoestrogens, black cohosh, and Chinese herbal remedies. And these are popular, but they have mixed evidence. Also, these products are not regulated, so there's no guarantee that the product is safe or effective. So it's a good idea to speak to your healthcare provider before you take any herbal or natural plant-based product, as they can sometimes interact with other medications. So that said, there are many medical, behavioral, and lifestyle strategies, and a combination of these can help most people find relief. Now I want to talk a little bit about symptom tracking. Because symptom tracking can really help bring clarity to what can otherwise feel like a very unpredictable stage of life. So by tracking cycle changes, symptoms, sleep, your mood, you can start to see patterns that make sense of what's happening in your body. Tracking can help you connect the dots, showing how hormonal changes may be related to your experience, and so you can understand what to expect. It can also help distinguish what's part of a typical perimenopause transition from signs that might need more attention. It can also help you understand your body well enough to notice when something feels different or something feels unusual. And when you bring this kind of data into healthcare conversations, it can help providers see the full picture and tailor advice and treatment specifically to your experiences. And in the future, there's also potential for data from symptom tracking to be combined with biomarkers from wearables to give a more precise picture of hormonal changes and potentially even inform more precise care and treatment. So tracking helps you recognize what's changing, but it can also help you decide when it might be time to get professional support. So if symptoms begin unusually early, before the age of 40, this could be a sign of early or premature menopause, so it's a good idea to check in with your healthcare provider. You should also seek medical advice for very heavy or prolonged bleeding, sorry. For example, if you're soaking a pad or tampon in less than 2 hours, or if you have bleeding between periods or bleeding after sex, these can sometimes point to an underlying condition. And any bleeding after menopause should always be evaluated by a doctor. And it's also important to speak to a provider if you experience things like heart palpitations, unexplained weight change, new or persistent pain, or if mood changes like anxiety or depression start to affect your daily life. So while symptoms may be a normal part of the transition, it doesn't mean that you need to suffer through them. And as we've covered, there are many treatments available that can help with disruptive symptoms. And we've seen how hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause can affect things like sleep, energy, mood, and concentration, and all of which can influence performance and well-being at work. So next, I wanted to give some practical advice on how to manage this transition in the workplace. So here are some small adjustments that can protect your well-being and performance. So for hot flashes, it can really help to stay in control of your temperature and your comfort. So things like dressing in layers or wearing breathable materials like cottons and linens, staying hydrated, drinking a lot of fluids, and if possible, adjusting the temperature or using a portable fan can help as well. And for fatigue, it can really help to keep your body moving, take short movement breaks. Protecting your sleep and practicing good sleep hygiene can help as well. And of course, going on easy on the caffeine can also help. And for brain fog, breaking tasks into smaller steps using reminders or tools like memory aids, and keeping your workspace organized can also help. And staying active in meetings by taking notes or asking questions and can really help your mind stay engaged. So these are just small intentional changes that can really make a big difference and help support your well-being at work. So we have another question for you. So does your workplace currently offer any kind of menopause support or have a menopause policy in place? Lots of no's. Okay, maybe just give it another 30 seconds. People are also adding in the chat. Okay, so yeah, a lot of no's. Go to the next slide. So the good news is that there are more and more organizations are recognizing menopause as a workplace well-being issue, which is a real sign of progress. In a UK survey, almost half of HR professionals said that their organizations now offer some form of menopause support, whether that's a training, a policy, or manager guidance. And when they asked the same thing 4 years prior, it was just under 1 in 10. So that's a fourfold increase in only 4 years. And this is UK specific. But despite all of this progress, only about 1 in 4 employees were actually aware that this support exists. That means that many people who could benefit simply didn't know what's available to them, which is why it's so important to know your rights and your company's policies. And tracking symptoms helps you identify what affects your work and what small practical adjustments might help, whether that's more flexible working hours, temperature control, or short breaks when symptoms flare. And starting this conversation early with your manager or HR makes it easier to find solutions together. But what's even more important than tangible policies, though, is a supportive workplace culture. One where talking about menopause feels normal. And that's really, really, truly what changes experiences at work. So we have a QR code here, and it will bring you to an article on helloclue.com that has more information and practical strategies around this. So whether you're advocating for yourself, supporting a colleague, or shaping policy as a manager, there are some tips that can help advocate for this kind of support at work. And as we're nearing the end of the webinar, I wanted to close on this note that these life stages are often talked about in terms of loss or of difficulty, but many people also describe positive experiences during perimenopause and menopause. And for some, there's a real sense of relief, no longer having to plan life around periods or deal with the physical symptoms that came with them. One person put it simply, it's just a relief. Others see this transition as a new chapter, a time to refocus, redefine priorities, and invest in themselves, potentially after years of caring for others. As one person said, you're entering a new era, a new stage of life. So I think it's important to acknowledge both sides, both the challenges and the opportunities. And because perimenopause is so underserved, we have created a mode for this in the Clue app. So it includes specific tracking categories so people can monitor changes over time. And there's also content on the topic to provide education and help people learn what's going on. And over time, our users have sent in a lot of positive feedback saying that this helps them feel in more control. It helps validate their experiences and feel better prepared for conversations with their doctor. So Clue perimenopause mode is only available on Clue+. So for those of you who don't already have it, as a thank you, we would love to give everyone 3 months of Clue+ for free. So you can try out that mode or any of our modes. It's all available. You just need to scan the QR code. It'll bring you to a web page where you can log into your Clue account or create an account if you don't already have one. And then you can redeem the voucher code, tap redeem, and you have 3 months. Thank you, everyone. And I think now we're just going to have a look in the chat to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, also a huge thank you from my end. We don't have questions yet, but some really nice comments. Thank you for sharing. I also wanted to just take a short moment and apologize to all the people who have not been able to join this webinar live. We are really sorry. This was due to technical issues that we had, but we will send the recording around. So yeah, some of you will watch this as a recording, and yeah, sorry again for that.